Hey everybody, Misty Williams here with Healing Rosie, and super excited for the conversation I'm going to have with Jason today. I have been hearing about the Human Longevity Project for, gosh, at least the last year, maybe a couple of years. And I had the opportunity to talk to Jason before we started today a little bit about this project. And we got into this really fascinating dialogue about what the lifestyles are like of people who are living 90 and 100 years. And he said some really fascinating things in this conversation. One of the things that he mentioned is until the 1960s, um, these people didn't have electricity and they lived their life in a really different way and they had very different lifestyles than the lifestyles that we have today. And of course, we know that this means that we're not going to be able to probably recreate their lifestyle exactly, but there's so many things that we can learn about the way people have lived that gives them a really long and healthy life. And when I think about the women in our community and the Healing Rosie community, I think one of the things that we're all striving for is figuring out, like, what do we need to do? What decisions do we need to do today to make sure that we're able to enjoy the life that we're living, that we're able to live a long time so that we're around for our children to grow up, we're around for our grandchildren. We want to live lives that enable us to support our parents as they're aging. We want to be good partners. We want to have really fulfilling careers. There's so many things that we dream about as women. And when I think about the kind of things that we're able to learn in this kind of project, understanding these kinds of principles, it really lights the fire under me, because this is the stuff that I think we're all engaged in Healing Rosie for. We want to learn the distinctions. We want to expand the tools in our toolbox so that we can create amazing lives for ourselves and our families. So super excited, Jason, that you're here today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, well, like I said in the opener here, I've been hearing a lot about this film. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the Human Longevity Project and give us an idea of the inspiration behind doing this series?
Yeah, the Human Longevity Project is a 9-part documentary film series that we went around the world. We went to the places known as blue zones, to Ikaria, Greece, and Sardinia, Italy, and Okinawa, Japan, and in Nicoya, Costa Rica, really to speak with and interview and observe these people that are living into their 80s, 90s, and beyond 100 in a healthy way. And we did so in a way that took more of a historical look at their health, instead of just what are they doing today. What did they do 60 years ago? What did they do, when they were born? What did their parents do? What did they eat? What was their lifestyle like, right? And because that's really the thing, those are the things that lead to being a healthy 80, 90-year-old, not what are you doing at 90, although that is important too. And it was really birthed out of this drive, from my perspective, working as a health practitioner with people in the US that had autoimmune diseases and cancers and hormonal imbalances, skin issues and digestive issues, all these problems that we see in the West, and they're occurring in our 30s and our 40s and our 50s, right? As you well know, and I do too. In fact, they started at 13 years old for me with chronic joint pain. So, we're suffering from these issues, these imbalances, these dysfunctions at an early age. And when I was working with these people as a practitioner one-on-one, what I realized is that there's a difference between looking at the diseases or the symptoms or the dysfunctions and trying to get in there and analyze this stuff and sort of treat this stuff with a functional integrative medicine approach versus teaching health, right? Both the philosophy of health, where does health come from? What is it, and also how do we achieve it? How do we institute it? How do we encourage it? So there's a difference between working with health and working with disease. And so what I found was that when I was working with clients, I was continuously teaching the same stuff, right? Circadian rhythm and emotional trauma work and cleaning up the environment and the way you think and feel, all these behavioral stuff we don't really know how to do here in the West to drive health. And so I was teaching that so often that I thought, I probably should just make a film about this so I can teach a broad number of people the same things that I'm teaching people in my personal practice. And if they want to work with functional or integrative medicine doctors or whatever, then they can do that too. But we need to learn what health is. And so this was sort of my way of delivering that information through people who are alive today. you and I both know the sort of paleo community or the ancestral community, and that's great. There's some really good things that we can learn, but that's through the context of supposedly 10,000 years ago, which can be relevant. But why don't we look at the people that are healthy today? Because we live today, right? But also people with a different lens, because we can't live like they do. So if we take that understanding that we live in a completely different world in the United States or in the West than these people did 80 years ago in Sardinia, Italy, in the mountains, then we can understand that we can't do the exact same things that they did, but we can take their wisdom and we can apply it in a different way to our lifestyles today. And that's really what the Human Longevity Project is all about. And also the research. We're learning so much in the research, in the past 20, 30 years about the microbiota, the mitochondria, the circadian rhythm. A gentleman won the Nobel Prize in 2017 for circadian biology. So there's so much research that we can use today to understand why some of these practices, why some of these lifestyle habits are beneficial. And so it's sort of combining research along with very grounded, behavioral observation through people living today.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things in my own personal journey early on was going to doctors and basically feeling like I was beating my head against a wall. I was sharing a little bit about that with you before we started today. And I know that there's a lot of women in the community who are having a similar experience where it's like, something's wrong in your body. So you go to your doctor with the hopes that your doctor is going to have the right kind of tools in his or her toolbox to be able to fix you. Yep. And one of the things we talk about a lot in the Healing Rosie community is, number one, lowering your expectation of doctors. Yeah. And I actually don't say that in a way that where I intend to be disrespectful to doctors or any kind of practitioner that's there to help us. One of the things that I've realized, and I want you to speak about a little more, is that the changes that I have had to make in my life in order to heal, most of them did not come from a doctor. Like the things that I had to do to clean up my environment, just, get the toxins out of my environment from the cleaning products, what I was putting on my skin, the rugs and mattresses and different things that I had that were off-gassing, that were constantly, causing me to breathe in toxins all the time, adding plants, inside so that I'm getting some really good filtration. I mean, just doing the things that create a healthier life for me. I have not had a doctor or practitioner tell me to do those things. Now, fortunately, we're in a space and I'm bringing people into our community all the time who are teaching about this stuff. But for me, in the unfolding of my personal journey, that did not come from a doctor, right? Yeah. There's so many things that we have to do to create health in our life. Another thing that we talked about that I'm excited for us to get into a little bit more is this idea of, especially as women, of learning to be receivers, restoring the energetic balance of give and take. So many women are give only. And I actually lived my entire life that way, starting from a very young age, being little Miss Mom for my mother, who was working really hard. I'm the oldest of four. I started very young, taking care of my sisters and being uber responsible, right? All the way up to, all through my 30s, just constantly being the person giving. I didn't even know that I wasn't receiving. Like it was so locked into my nervous system to show up a certain way. So there's so much about my journey that's really changed because I started paying attention to how I was living. Yeah. And I'd love for you just to talk a little bit more about what you saw in these people that are living 80, 90, 100 years that might be different, like juxtapose that to how in our culture today, especially as women, we might be living, that's keeping us from enjoying a really amazing quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. I want to take it in like 12 directions. First of all, I will say that just to speak to that giving and receiving aspect. It's helpful to think in archetypes. So, the archetype of receiving is the feminine, right? This is the receiver. And even as men, we don't do this very well. But there's a balance here, right? If you think in more of an Eastern philosophy, there's balance. If you're constantly giving, and here's the thing about giving. If you're giving from a place of, I must receive back, then there's going to be an energy imbalance because there's an expectation, right? It's this transactional thing. So giving just to give out of love with no expectation of receiving is a great place to be. However, we also do need to recognize that we can receive as well. And it doesn't even need to be from somebody. if we understand that we can receive from nature itself, we can receive from ourselves, we can receive from
Right.
anything, from God, from the universe, from the creator, whatever you want to say. But this idea that I am receiving right now, if I just sit in meditation, I'm receiving all the love, I'm receiving healing, my body supporting me, right? So it's almost a perception thing to receive. If we can accept that energetically and understand what that is, then we can balance this giving and receiving. And also when we give from a place of love with no expectation from another person to give back, which may or may not be the case. But what's interesting is that when you start to set up a non-transactional aspect of giving, you'll find that you'll receive more from other people. It's really, really fascinating. So it's a personal journey. And so you hit on so many important things here, which is that your journey is your journey. Doctors are not here to fix you. No practitioners are here to do anything. You can use them as guides. You can use them as mirrors. But it's important to recognize, very, very well stated, that lower your expectations of somebody else giving you anything in terms of your health. Your health comes from you. It's an internal aspect. This is an important thing about health. It is innate. It is built within you. It is already there. We just have to learn how to harness it, how to balance, how to roll with it, and how to create it from within. So there are great practitioners out there. I know a lot of them, and they're very, very helpful when we engage with them. And there's some that are not so helpful. But if you can learn to use doctors as a mirror and to work with them and learn from them, but at the end of the day, recognize it's your journey. And the healing path really is a path. It's not a destination. It's not something that you get to say, now I'm healed. I did it. Finally, it's over. Now I can go back to just living a life where I don't have to deal with this anymore. No,
Right.
we have to change our perception. It's a constant state of healing. We're always healing, right? So recognizing that the process is the thing you're engaged with, and that's it. Recognizing that there is no destination that you must get to. So it's a constant unpeeling. You're peeling back the layers, and this onion, it doesn't end. So as you get to one thing, then there's always more. And so if you become frustrated by this, now you're just going to exacerbate the process. The lesson is to continue on the process, continue to receive, continue to become more aware, continue to add things, or actually more like subtract things from your life, but continue to add awareness to your journey. That's the key. And when we think about the people that we studied in Ikari and in Okinawa and et cetera, they lived a very simple life. That is, if I could boil it down to anything, they lived a simple life. It was simple and slow. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from a gentleman, I think he was 98, in Ikaria, Greece, he said, when I was young, the body was busy and the mind was still. Now the problem I see is that the mind is busy and the body is still. And I thought, God, this guy's a freaking genius. Like, you say no more, right?
Right.
So we just need to slow down and look at our environment. We are constantly getting inundated with inputs. We're overstimulated to the max. And this flips our nervous system into a state of survival, right? We're constantly in this sympathetic state, which is not a state of healing. This is a state of breaking down. This is a state of, I need to survive right now because the environment's not safe. If we can flip over into the state of parasympathetic, this is where, we call it the rest and digest, but really this is the state of repair, of regeneration, of healing. So if we're constantly in a state that is survival, then we can't receive healing. And it goes back again to the archetype of the feminine, the archetype of receiving, the archetype of being in a safe space. So having the masculine, and by the way, this is not a male-female thing, but it just so happens that females are more geared toward the feminine, and they happen to be more in balance when it's more geared toward the feminine. There needs to be a masculine safety net, if you will. That's the point of the masculine, to hold the space safe so that the feminine can receive, can create, can do all the things that the masculine can't do, right? So we need to sort of get into this state where we feel safe, all of us, and this includes men too, that we need to be in a state where we can feel safe so that the body can recreate, can regenerate, can heal. And healing comes from within. So it's not a thing that you add to the equation that's going to cause your healing. It is a state of healing from within at the most fundamental layers of who we are. So there's so much to this, but it really comes down to continuing the process of unfolding your healing path and recognizing that our state that we're in, the disease, the dysfunction, the imbalanced state, and includes me and to be honest, all of us, we have to accept responsibility for where we're at. We cannot blame anybody else, even though there may be causes to where we're at. it is our responsibility to heal. So the sooner that we can take this responsibility and this ownership of our current state of disease, of dysfunction, whatever, then that's the point at which we can take ownership of our healing journey. But until we do that, we're going to constantly blame and point fingers and look elsewhere for the problem and for the answer. So once we do that, then we can find so much easier path to healing, and it starts to unfold naturally. So it's accepting where we're at and taking on this journey willingly and hopefully enthusiastically, and recognizing that the diseases, the dysfunctions, the pains, the aches, all the agony, it is the greatest gift you've ever been given, because it's teaching you how to live in harmony. It's teaching you how to foster better relationships. It's teaching you how to think better, how to feel better, right? All the things that are more harmonious, it's guiding you to that. So it's just a matter of learning to listen, right? To have the courage to listen and walk the path. So it's not easy all the time. It is hard. It is frustrating. It sucks. We all have these days, including myself, and I've been doing this for a long time, that you're like, I'm just done with this. I'm tired, screw this. But then we have to just kind of remind ourselves, okay, this is life. There's no way forward other than to recognize, to accept, and to get to a more balanced state. And in doing so, our healing starts to come naturally.
Yeah. So one of the things that you said, and I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit more, is you said that there's a lot of differences in maybe how people started their lives versus how we start our lives today. Can you kind of help it, like just do a little juxtaposition of how it was then, how it is today, and maybe some learnings or takeaways from comparing those two? Because obviously we can't make today like it was
right
then. Right?
And to some degrees, nor would we want to. I mean, when I'm talking to these people that are 80 and 90 and 100, they're telling me about their life, and they'd walk 30, 40 kilometers to go get a simple thing that I can get from Amazon, or even I can get more from Amazon than they could get, right? So they lived a difficult life. They would walk 30 kilometers to work and then do all this physical labor, and then walk 30 kilometers home and then make dinner. And it's like, holy smokes, I don't want to live that life. So we can't glorify their conditions, but I thought I knew a lot going into this, and I thought I knew what I was going to get from some of these people, but they consistently shocked me with some of their wisdom and some of their life stories. I didn't realize, that they didn't have electricity in most of these places until 1960 or so. I mean, that honestly shocked me. And so if you think about that, think about what happens if you've ever gone through a blackout or a brownout in your home or in your town. You have no refrigeration, you have no lights, cars aren't going to operate very long without any electricity to pump the gas and all these things. So life slows down immediately when you have no electricity, right? So they lived in a very, very different way. And also think about no electricity in a birthing situation, right? Now you're going back to your faculties as a human, and that's it, right? You got doulas and midwives and people that can help you that have gone through it before, but you don't have these emergency things that we can fall back on. So, they were birthed differently. When they slept and woke up, they did so in a different way. They woke up with the sun. They went to bed, in candlelight. And then as soon as it got dark, there's nothing really to do except for maybe tell some stories and clean up the house. But then you went to bed, they cooked and washed clothes and washed dishes, and in a completely different manner. They farmed on their property. They lived a very, very different life. And some of those things we probably should institute more of, right? The darkness at night, growing our own food. There's a lot of these things that we can still institute. But it's such a different life. It's almost hard to imagine how they lived. But they also recognize that there's some beauty in the progress that we've made. So the question is, how do we marry these two realities and accept and be grateful for the things that we have now and the abilities that we have, but also kind of go backwards with some of this stuff, slow the heck down, turn off the TVs, turn off the Spotifys and all the music and all the stimulus, read a book, use candles, go outside, get into nature, right? This is something that, I've worked with clients where I'm like, I want you to get outside for an hour a day into nature, into a park, and onto the beach, into the forest, whatever it is. Just go outside for an hour a day, not in the city where you're being overstimulated. And people are like, I don't have time. I can't do this. And I'm like, wow, we can't get outside for an hour,
Yeah.
1/24 of our day, 1/10 of our waking hours, or 1/15 of our waking hours. And so there's a lot of problems with that, and I've also talked to clients where their feet hasn't touched the earth in like weeks. And if you think about that, it actually is, we walk inside, then we go outside, we put shoes on, we're in a car, we're in an office, nobody's touching their feet to the earth as often as these people back then. So there's so many aspects to our lives that are so different. So it's just re-engaging with some of these very simple things. And a lot of people that have autoimmune diseases or cancers or these things that we're suffering from, they think, oh, well, what's that going to do? To get outside for an hour and to touch my feet to the earth, this is not going to solve my hormonal imbalance. This is not going to solve my autoimmune disease. And, that is the very thinking that is preventing the healing. It's not about the one thing that's going to make me heal. It's about doing multiple things that slow my system down, that get my nervous system to a better state, that flip over my physiology, that allows for the state of healing, because the healing is already there. We just got to engage that physiology, engage that neurophysiology. And that is the key. So it's all these things that we need to address, and everybody's in a different place. So it's hard for me to say, this is what you need to do, because everybody needs to do, needs to focus their efforts in different areas depending on what their lifestyle is like.
Yeah. One of the things that it's kind of playing through my head as I'm listening to you talk is that I think a lot of times we think that maybe they weren't as stressed back then as we are now. And as I'm listening to you describe their lifestyles, I think they probably did carry a lot of stress back then, but they also carried, or was built into their life to repair, slow down, restore. And
That's exactly it.
I think that's really what's missing for a lot of us, is that we don't have time built in to slow down. One of my friends in our ancestral health space is Ben Greenfield. You probably know
Yep.
Ben. And one of the things that Ben learned, oh gosh, I think I started following Ben around 2012, 2013. And right at the time I started following him, he had his labs pulled. So he's like, when you look at him physically, he's in amazing shape. He was winning all his races. Everything was good, but he had his labs done, and his labs were trashed. And he knew from that it was just a matter of time. And one of the number one things that he does, or probably the number one thing that he does, as an athlete who is taxing his body at the highest level still, and he's in his late 30s now, is he sleeps a lot and builds in a ton of time to repair, restore the body. So
And that's just it.
Yep. He manages his heart rate variability by making sure that he is restored enough to continue taxing his body at this really high level. And I think women probably are the worst at this, when we put the kids down, or when we have a minute in our day, when one part of our life has slowed down, we use that as an opportunity to go kick up another part of our life that we haven't been able to get to yet. And I think for a lot of us, it's giving my mom, I'm thinking of my mother right now. I wish I could impress upon her how much she needs to just embrace and be okay with not working as much. She's 70 years old. She still works 40 plus hours a week and carries all these other responsibilities. And I want her to be able to slow down, but our culture does not give us permission to take it easy,
Right.
And it's a big part of what's making us so sick.
And we have to take the permission, right? This is the thing. You have to give yourself permission to step out of that. And that's hard. It's not an easy thing to step out of your culture, right? In fact, This is one of the lessons that I learned, was that your environment that you're in is dictating your state more than you think. And I don't mean the physical environment. I mean the energetic environment, right? Go to New York City and you feel different. Then go to Omaha, Nebraska. Very, very different speed, very, very different energy. When we go to Costa Rica, time stops. It's crazy. It slows down. So when it comes to stress, we have to really be careful with how we speak about this, because the words really, really matter in terms of the understanding. Mm-hmm. When we speak of stress, first of all, perception is key, right? So what we have too much of in the US is mental and emotional stress, right? And this is all perception, right? You go up onto a stage to speak, and most people are like, oh God, and all of a sudden their physiology changes, right? You're sweating, your heart's beating, your blood pressure rises, your face might turn red, whatever. Nothing is happening. You're not in danger. There's no lion. It's perceived stress. And there's really nothing. So this is an old fear program that was put into you in middle school or elementary school or high school or something, that you're not okay, that something's wrong with you, that you don't know things, whatever it is. There's an old program that's running in the background in the subconscious, so that when you get up on a stage or whatever this is, it's going to change your physiology, right? So that's a perception that we have to recognize. And so there's a difference between perceived stress and actual stress. You talk about Ben Greenfield or these people that live in these other parts of the world that we talk to. They had a heck of a lot of stress, but it was physical stress. And yes, there was some mental and emotional stress, but it wasn't like it is today. They had a support network. They had people to rely on. They had parents and grandparents and kids and community that they could fall back on. Most of us are operating almost in a state of aloneness. We don't have people that we can fall back on that can support us, not like they did and not like we used to in the US. So it's a perception of stress. So I actually think we need more stress. We just need different kinds of stress. We need plant chemical stress, right? We need these polyphenols and these phytochemicals that we get from these plants. That's a cellular stress that actually turns on all these anti-inflammatory mechanisms in the body, right? We need sun stress. We need to get outside and get the sun. That is a stressor on the body, right? But the body responds accordingly. We need cold and heat stress, right? Another thing that people like Ben and Laird Hamilton and, Aubrey Marcus and Joe Rogan and all these people at PaleoFX, and this is what they do, right? You get in the saunas and the infrared saunas, and you get that heat stress. These heat shock proteins are very, very valuable. Cold shock proteins too. So you see people taking cold baths, right? Wim Hof method, etc. So we need more cold stress. We need more breath stress. We need more carbon dioxide utilization and mechanisms going on with the breath. So we can induce more stress that allows our physiology to become more resilient, that becomes stronger. So people with hormonal issues or imbalances, things like hot and cold showers, right? Where you do this alternating shower. This actually engages the parasympathetic. This actually makes you more resilient. Heat stress, same thing. Exercise stress, very, very valuable. But along with that, you hit it on the head. We need to calm down. We need more meditation, more yin yoga, not this, crazy weighted yoga stuff that we're doing. We need more yin stuff, more calming, more relaxing. The yogas, the breath works, the tai chis, the qigongs, the meditations, the prayers, the walking, the sitting down with friends and just engaging and shooting the shit. We need more of this calming down, but we're all running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and we're stressing ourselves out. And a lot of this mental and emotional stress is an old programmed pattern that comes from trauma in our childhood, that comes from trauma in our early adulthood, that comes from birthing trauma. We might have been inherited this trauma. There's all kinds of research showing inherited trauma is a thing. So we have to recognize that if we are unable to control our mental and emotional state, then it's probably being caused by an old program, an old circuitry that came from the past. So what that means is that old circuitry, old things that happened in the past created a set of programs in the subconscious mind that basically affect the body too, right? The subconscious mind is the neurophysiology. So things that happened in the past create a set of programs that we're running today, and predictably will run the future. So now we have the past running our future. How are you going to heal if you don't address this circuitry that is operating in a certain way that's leading to imbalance, that's telling you the world's not safe if you can't go address that, right? So even a child that's born with a cord around its neck, it's coming into the world in a state of sympathetic overdrive, that this world's not safe, I'm going to die. So it's really, really complex to some degree, but the concepts are simple. We have to recognize, what is our mental and emotional state? Where is it being guided? And how do I address that, right? And that's some of the emotional trauma stuff that you can get into. And there may be multiple techniques to use, right? Whether it's EMDR, whether it's hypnotherapy. You're seeing more people go to plant medicines like ayahuasca and these type of things now, and psilocybin. It's now been legalized in some places. These things are now being studied, and if done appropriately and carefully, and if that's something that you're drawn to, that can be a thing. There's meditation that can help, breath work can help. Holotropic breath work is fantastic for releasing emotional traumas that are trapped in the body and the nervous system. So there's lots of things that we have to recognize when it comes to stress. Where does it actually come from? And how do we induce more appropriate stress, more of this stress that's beneficial, that can be coupled with the rest, with the sleep, with the relaxation. So we need more of the extremes. And we need to get out of this middle ground where it's this constant state of perceived mental and emotional stress without actual beneficial stress.
Yeah. You, in the film, you talk about some of the modern environmental hacks that you've kind of gleaned from doing all this studying and realizing the conditions that are really important in order for us to have healthier lives as we're aging. You want to share a couple of those with us?
Yeah, I mean, let's take one, which is, I think, probably the most important thing that we can focus on right now, which is circadian rhythm, right? This idea that the light cycle is guiding your biology. In 2017, the Nobel Prize was given towards circadian biology or chronobiology, the way that primarily the light. It's also the food and the temperature and things, but it's mostly the light, how it affects our physiology, which is essentially that it enters the eye, hits a part of the brain that then guides the physiology, right? So this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, for example, HPA, or hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, right? The hypothalamus and the pituitary guide almost all of our hormones, right? And we know that circadian biology affects us at the cellular level. There are things called clock genes and period genes that are guided by the rhythm of the light. In fact, the thyroid has over 1,000 gene transcripts that are guided by the light. They're either turned off or turned on based on the timing of the day as perceived by the body. So addressing the light cycle is critical, but we have artificial light. In fact, I'm looking into artificial light right now into this computer. We have our phones, we have our TVs, and we have the overhead lights in our household. So how can we address this, right? Obviously, we can use things like blue blocking glasses, right? These red or orange glasses that we can use in the household. It's a very, very good hack, right? Because we live in a modern environment that is totally artificial. We've created this. This is not something that was around 500 years ago. Didn't exist 3,000 years ago or 8,000 years ago, right? We used lamps, carbide lamps, oil lamps, candles, etc. So we can use that as a hack. We can bring back more candles and fire into our life, right? That has orange and red light. Also has an energetic quality to it that, you know, indigenous cultures speak about and Ayurveda speaks about, and it's beautiful when you start to look at the energetic quality of fire. We can bring orange light bulbs into our household, right? To if you can't change all the lights overhead, bring in some lamps and get these orange light bulbs. It's a beautiful way, and it sets the tone and it sets the rhythm, the mood of your house, right? We used to do candles as a romantic gesture, right? And you still see it in the movies sometimes. We can bring this back into our own lives, and it calms the nervous system. It calms us down. So I think these lighting hacks are very, very beneficial. Probably one of the most beneficial things we can do. A lot of us have Wi-Fi in our house. So can we put Wi-Fi on a timer so that it's not on at night, or just unplug it? Or better yet, go back to cable, hardline internet. That's unfortunately a hack that we're going to have to worry about. And some people dismiss the EMF aspect of this. And you might be able to get away with that argument 10 years ago or 6 years ago. But the Wi-Fi's and the cell signals are getting so much more powerful, infinitely more powerful, every few years. And so even the studies that we have today come from years ago, and those are the latest studies. So what are we being bombarded with today? It's hard to really understand this stuff. And so addressing that is going to become more and more critical as we get into this. Hopefully we avoid it, but the 5G world, So really looking at those hacks. I think those are probably the most beneficial things I can think of, as well as maybe the cold stuff, getting into some of the cold hacks. You can use a lot of these things. HRV is very, very beneficial, which is heart rate variability. The Oura Ring is a fantastic piece of technology that you can use to look at your sleep and see how you're doing, and implement new things like meditation before bed and see how it affects your sleep. You might do a bath, with Epsom salts before bed and see how it affects your sleep. You might do some breath work and see how it affects your sleep, these type of things. So really tracking where you're at and how things work is very beneficial. Infrared saunas can be a very, very good tool, or even a Swedish sauna, right? And I hate to say that it's a hack, but it kind of is, because the way that we need to use these in our modern world is probably more so from a detoxification standpoint, to get rid of the glyphosates and the heavy metals and the plastics and all the petrochemicals that we're absorbing and we can't avoid anymore. So using that as a tool for detoxification. You can look at Ayurveda. Ayurveda has some amazing tools to open up the lymphatic system, right? You can do the oil massages that they've perfected thousands of years ago. You can use dry brushing, even panchakarma, if you can afford to do that, if you can take some time there, fantastic tool. A Vipassana meditation retreat can be very, very beneficial as another tool. So there's a lot of aspects that we can use to bring into our modern life that maybe aren't normally associated with our daily living.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Jason. I'm so excited to be one of the participants of this next launch of Human Longevity Project. And thank you so much for taking some time today. I hope you guys got a lot out of this, and you are, like me, provoked to consider what else in your own environment you could really take on as a matter of importance to your own health. What changes can you make in your daily life that will give you the gift of good health? Where can you be a better receiver in your life? Where are you not asking for what you need from those that love you? Where can you make some tweaks? I did cold baths early in my journey, actually, to help get my sleep back on track.
It's a great tool. And it sucks at first, right? It's horrible.
I think it sucks for the first, I did a bath of about 60-degree water. So if you can get through the first minute to 90 seconds of hyperventilating, it was actually fine. It's kind of like, jumping into a swimming pool, but that was a really powerful hack for me. It was the first time in my entire adult life, and maybe even as a teenager or as a kid, that I got the experience of waking up refreshed in the morning. I didn't even know that was a thing.
And it challenges you mentally, right? It pushes you on beyond your mental and emotional threshold. You're like, because all you want to do is like, this sucks. I want to get out. I'm not going to survive. I hate this. And your whole brain just goes nuts, right? But you also said hyperventilating. That's a very, very important thing. You're actually now breathing. So bringing back that intentional breath and bringing more oxygen and more. So it's a profound tool, and it does suck at first, but if you get into the rhythm of it, it can actually be addicting, and it's a fantastic
tool. It's one of those things that it's not very hard for me at all to get into a nighttime ritual doing cold baths now. Cold baths, and I started wearing the amber glasses in 2011. In my house, in my bedroom, we have amber bulbs. In the living room, I have lamps with amber bulbs. We don't do any overhead lighting ever because I just really don't like it, but especially at night, we're really mindful of these things. But these lifestyle changes, they take some time. So I invite all of you just to consider, what can you do right now? What can you set some intention around? Like, I'm going to move toward, and go ahead and sign up. If you're watching on Facebook, in the status, you'll see a link to go sign up for the Human Longevity Project. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's down in the description. But definitely pencil some time in your calendar during this next launch to participate and learn, and give yourself a lens through which to evaluate your own lifestyle and the kind of changes you can make to really move the needle on your health in a way that is going to give you far more results even than working with a practitioner, because these lifestyle changes change the trajectory of your life. And that's really the most important part, I think, of this whole conversation. So thank you so much, Jason. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. I love the way you think, and you've clearly facilitated and curated an amazing audience that is about empowerment. And that's really important to see, because it's not being done enough. We have too many gurus saying, follow me, listen to me, I'm an expert. And it's really a source of empowerment and getting you back to your state of health, and knowing that you're the health expert on you. So thank you for sort of spreading that message and opening people up to messages like this.
Yeah. Well, my desire for all of us in this community is to feel like we're in the driver's seat. It's definitely not the Misty Show in that regard. I am not the health expert. I am shoulder to shoulder with these women, and I love that we're all. That's right. I love that
right there with you.
We're taking this on together. We're lifting the boats for each other and providing some space to be challenged, sometimes in a way that hopefully gets us on the right path and gives us permission to take on this journey in a little different way. So
absolutely.
And we'll see you
Thanks
guys.
for having me.
All right.